Welcome everyone to Sunday. It's the 4th of June and happy full moon. How many of you celebrated the full moon in Sagittarius? So that means that the sun is in gene key 35 and the moon is in gene key 5, its programming partner. So we're going to pick up some of the themes in this gene key with this particular transmission on the realms of, it's called the ray of creation. And the ray of creation is a metaphysical map of consciousness or lack thereof, of evolution and devolution. And as I have been studying the gene keys for many, many years and giving these transmissions and sharing with you, I have appreciated coming upon a map that supports me further in seeing where things fit. Because in the spiritual community, we throw terms around, don't we? As we've been online and everyone's become an influencer, we all throw terms around. And so we talk about the imaginal realm, the causal body, we talk in more modern parlance, like everything is possible. We live in possibility. We're in oneness. I mean, we throw terms around and we honestly don't have a map, most of us, of what it means and where we are inside the map. And why that's important is because our actions matter. There's some kind of spiritual infiltration or let's say infiltration into the spirit world or spiritual world that somehow our actions don't matter, or that we don't need to be accountable for who we're being. Because I think we've had a very narcissistic worldview, like it's all about me, it's all about us, it's all about my personal flourishing, it's all about my personal abundance, it's all about my personal growth. And while that's important because you're an individual inside the collective, there's something much bigger going on. And I'm getting oriented to it. And so I think that this is the Saturn in Pisces, which is inviting us to spiritually mature. So as you know, before I start a class, oftentimes, or at the end of the class, we dedicate to the merits. It's a Buddhist practice that I picked up through Lama Tsultrim and maybe others, where we take all the energy and we transmute that good energy and we send it out for the benefit of all beings. Well, in this map study that I've been doing of the metaphysical map, the 7 rays of creation, I realized that that is a real thing. It's a real thing. So I think this understanding of the map is going to give us more gravitas and infuse our actions with something bigger than our own personal loss or gain. And for me, I've been going through from the beginning of the year in my like cards of destiny, lots of 7s and 9s. And those are spiritual lessons and losses or completions. So when I knew that I had 7s and 9s on my terrain, the way you handle a 7 and a 9, so those are traditionally, when people are in this esoteric tradition, they are ass-kicking numbers. And you really want like a 4 or an 8. And what I mean by that is that different periods of your life, these cards show up. They're kind of oracles, or they're part of divination. And it's just part of a system, because I love systems, that I found and stumbled upon, and I met the teacher, and kind of opened up a world of the way that I look at things. So for me, everything is about context. It's not about what someone predicted is going to happen. It's more about, these are the energies that I'm dealing with, right? So if you're dealing with an intense situation, and I know many of you have been dealing with intense situations, some of you are through them, but life is honorable, right? It's not one and done. If we look at the spread, and this particular system maps out until you're 100 years old. So you can see the themes coming in your life until you are 100. I really don't recommend that because it's a little bit maddening. But let's just say that like there is a dense structure, and we're going to hear about that in a minute, that structure is kind of mechanistic, and astrology is, and some numerology is able to reflect back the mechanism. So all that's to say that when you hit a tough time, when you hit a roadblock, when you hit a challenge, the way that you overcome it is through your heart, is through connection with the divine. Because after all, that's why it's there. It's really there to refine and sharpen you. And you're going to see in this context how that works. All right. So the gene key of 35 kind of catapulted me into this conversation. I probably wouldn't have gone there, but 35, the shadow is hunger. The gift is adventure. And the city is boundlessness. And that city, boundlessness, is what got me into this, describing this for you, this metaphysical world. Now, I told you that when we're in a full moon, the sun is in Gemini, the moon is in Sagittarius, and that moon is in gene key 5. So that's impatience, patience, and timelessness. So it's really cool because if you look at the two cities, timelessness and boundlessness, that's time and space. Time and space is our physical world. We are bound on this physical plane by time and space. But that's only for this physical plane. So how many want to become mystics and touch in on the non-ordinary world that is not bound by time and space? I see some hands raised. Totally, right? Because that's the freaking real jam. And you're going to see it when I share this map. And this map is coming from a spiritual teacher. She's a wise woman crone. Her name is Cynthia Bourgeot, and she wrote many, many books. And one is called The Eye of the Heart. And she's a Christian mystic. And I got into her through Mary Magdalene. And because she does some Mary Magdalene research and teachings. And Megan Watterson referenced Cynthia. So I kind of went on a breadcrumb trail. And what I realized was I was led on that breadcrumb trail to a mystical map from Gurdjieff. Gurdjieff was is said to be an enlightened being around the turn of the last century, who was brilliant and wrote things that are very hard to read, very very arcane terminology, just in a way like human design was written by Ra. Sometimes the person who receives the mystical downloads writes them in ways that need to be, they're only able to be interpreted by someone who reads them from the eye of the heart. Remember, like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, you cannot just read that book. You would never know what it says. Even a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned the Gnostic Gospels. I think it was Gene Key 20. And I was saying that if you read the words with your rational mind, you would say to yourself, this shit is nonsensical. But you have to read with the eye of the heart. So to become a mystic, you now know that you're dropping from the rational mind into what they call the heart mind. It's not like the heart where we say, oh, we feel so, soppy and sweetness. That may be a part of the heart mind, but the heart mind is actually the portal space into the higher realms. So in this world, when we talk about boundlessness, and that points to the imaginal world, the world of possibility, we are talking about a realm, not an actual physical place. Just like heaven is not an actual physical place. Okay. Hell is not an actual physical place. These are realms. And unfortunately, it was the thinking that came down through Aristotle, which is thing thinking. So we think in things, and they're not things, they are realms. And so as spirit infusing a body, we have access to those realms. Do you believe that? Yeah. Awesome. Good. Me too. And so then this is going to support you in, this map will support you in accessing the realms. This gets me really excited because I feel like it's the manifestation of really what Christ came to share with us, Buddha as well, is heaven in a body. How do we experience heaven in a body? That is not a made up thing. It's an actual realm, but it is not available in a dense lower realm. So when we're talking about realms, we're going to talk about density, vibrational density. Does everyone understand that we are energy? Every single thing is energy. So I think in the last few decades, that has become accepted in our consciousness. And we see even with like physics now, maybe remember that movie, What the Bleep Do We Know, way back then? It was talking about everything being energy. Everything is this wave. And when I put my attention on it, it becomes a particle. It doesn't become a particle until I put my attention on it. So now we're beginning to see that there is an interplay between who I'm being and what I perceive and have in the world. So hence, as spiritual leaders, my thing is, how do we become mystical spiritual leaders? It's through our beingness, and our beingness, as we'll see, matters. So Gene Key 35 is really all about overcoming this shadow of this hunger. So if we look at hunger as this evolutionary force drawing us forward, like I have a hunger to understand the map of consciousness so that I can play more intentionally inside of it, that drives me forward. But my hunger is actually in a higher vibrational place. Some people have not dealt with their own shadows, so their hunger causes them, and I don't even mean like it that way, because it's not an either or. We're always dealing with our shadow, right? It's that they have not been on the path yet of awakening to notice that the accumulation, the hunger projected in the outer realm of, it can be actual food, it can be material goods. We've heard of shopping addictions. Maybe some of us have been addicted to buying things online or in stores, or having just so much crap around that you just kind of have to keep consuming. The hunger keeps us as a consumer because we're looking for the answer to that hunger on the outside. So recently, I just switched my diet from a carbohydrate-based diet to a fat-based diet. And I'm not suggesting that anyone do this. I just am sharing that when I did that, what I realized is that the more I ate carbohydrates, the more I wanted carbohydrates. And as soon as I started eating fat, I was satiated. That's an analogy. This is not a prescription. I'm not a health coach. This is an analogy of that thing where we can keep consuming with the mistake, the misunderstanding that consumption could be experiences even as well. It is going to satiate us. And it doesn't, because we're playing an outer game when the game is really an inner game. So Gene Key 35 says that when you turn inward and you begin an inner adventure, the words are often strange in the Gene Keys. So adventure is really the inner quest, the inner adventure that you go on to know yourself. And you unlock your capacity for boundlessness to play outside the rules when you unlock your capacity to love. If there's anything you write down today, it's that. Honestly, I came from a tradition where a lot of people talked about love. And so the love thing just never landed for me. I was just not, one of my friends called it like, he was like, oh, back in the day when I was like in my 30s, he's like, oh, are you a love Nazi? And so he would like that disparagement of love. And so now I'm revisiting love through the eye of the heart. And I'm seeing that I was missing the point because that word had gotten so homogenized into everything. I can't remember, Katie, what I said. I think I said, if you write down one thing, someone might can write it in the chat. I'm going to say what Richard Rudd says, and maybe this will cover it. To live with an open heart is to live in a perpetual state of adventure. There you go. Adventure means that there is still some fear inside you. So we haven't conquered the shadow. In the gift frequency, we're still human. We're not enlightened. We still deal with fear, but we're not dealing with our fear unconsciously. So we're not going outside being consumers. We are actually turning inward. It says, but you have reached a frequency that you know is high enough to outwit the fear. I love that. Every human being has the choice to take the path of love. So what I was saying is that it's the path of love that unlocks the door to the world of possibility. And I'm going to show you how. Yes, if you want to play outside the rules, it's connected to your heart. Because what I've been learning, and this is really supporting me in my journey of touching in on the imaginal space, is that there is a morality to it, meaning that to play outside the rules, the intention must be pure. It must be of the heart. And I'm going to show you why. It makes actually a lot of sense. And this is going to be this is not a teaching on the 7 rays system from Gurdjieff, because I'm not qualified to do that, but this is an outline that will support you in your contemplation. So listen with the eye of contemplation. So along the ray of creation, there are multiple frequencies, but we're going to deal with just a few of the frequencies. And Gurdjieff calls them worlds, but we don't mean physical worlds. We mean realms. And the earth plane, let's start with where we are. The earth plane is called World 48. That's the biosphere. That's the earth plane. And then it really halves itself. So we go 1, 3, 6, 12, 24, and 48. Those represent the higher planes. And then from there down is the lower planes. Those are the lower dense worlds. And there's an exchange that's happening. So the energetics of the lower world are, we can, and as soon as I name them, you will be able to see and feel them. Those energetics are at play. So imagine that you're in a neighborhood and someone is playing, like, not to defame heavy metal, but let's just say someone's playing heavy metal and it's like, nah. And I know some people like that, whatever. I feel like it messes with my nervous system, but let's just say someone's playing that super loud. And then let's choose something that's more higher vibrational music. You can feel the vibration in the music, right? So let's say it's I don't know, maybe it's a mantra. It's a cool mantra, like Ramadasa Sase Soham. Let's just say that's happening, and then heavy metal is happening, right? And your house is situated in the middle of that neighborhood, listening to these two things. That's what's happening in the world. And so your energy matters. You can either contribute to that lower density energy form, which or you can contribute to the higher energy. There is a homeostasis that the higher energies streaming through keep in balance the lower energies from taking over. That is really important. And I'm not asking anyone, just to know, I'm not asking anyone to believe anything. I'm sharing it as a context for how to see something. So listen from a way of how it can support you and who you're being on world 48, planet Earth. Okay. So world one, let's start with world one. It's the holy unmanifest, the holy absolute. This is the ineffable, the undescribable, the unnameable. When you read certain like yogic texts or Sanskrit texts or Buddhism, everybody has words for this aspect of God. And even in Gurmukhi that I was trained in with Kundalini Yoga, there are like the 8 names of God, the unmanifest, the unknowable. That's world one. This is God, goddess, that primal force before it split into 2. So it's undivided and imperceptible. So we can't know it because it's oneness writ large. Then we go to world 3, and that is when indivisibility and perceptibility start to take form. So it's like by divine will, let's make up a story. God decided to break itself up into parts. And that is where we understand consciousness, because consciousness means with knowing, conscientia, with knowing. There's no with in world one, but the with that's where with gets distinguished in world 3. And this is symbolized by infinite possibilities in this world. Now, world 6, so we're going by halves, we're doubling at this point. World 6 is like the bridge. It is pure eros. I love this. This is Shakti. This is the creative force of the universe. So remember, duality has already been created. And now we have in world 6, Shiva and Shakti creating the world. This is through their cosmic lovemaking. And we have that in us. We have Shiva and Shakti in us, in the cosmic lovemaking called Eros. This is the causal realm. This is, and the structure, the structure of this realm is love. It's pure generativity. It's pure life force. It's the Big Bang. It's where our universe's story begins. And what Cynthia says is this is the highest realm that can be touched while we are still in human form. So that's beautiful as a map. So a lot of people talk about Shiva, Shakti, Eros, but it's actually a very high level. And this is hierarchical. And also those energies stream through the lower energies to inform us on Earth. It's beyond the personal. So there's no personal gain here. So that's another distinguishing aspect, is that when we are in the personal, really focusing on our personal manifestation, our business, our success, our abundance, nothing's bad. It's just not this. This is way beyond. This is transpersonal. This is not you as a separate self. So this is the zone between the unmanifest and the primordial manifest. Then world 12 is the Christic realm. It's this realm, and I love this. It's the realm of the fully incarnate, embodied love. It's the realm of Jesus as the Christ, the enlightened one who brings the message of love in a body. So it's an overlapping zone between the human and that fiery Eros that we just talked about in World 6. And then here's the one that the world that's the closest to our world, that I think that many spiritual practitioners are using the languaging of without knowing it. So as a mystic, you get to know this map. World 24. This is, in other words, the kingdom of heaven. Isn't that beautiful? This is the realm of the kingdom of heaven. It's the home range of the imaginal world, not imagination as in made up stuff in your mind, but the world of possibility. And in World 24, the reason why they're named that by the numbers is Gurdjieff said that each realm is governed by a certain number of laws. And as you go up the hierarchy of realms, as you notice with the numbers, there are less and less laws, but they're more binding. And this is what's interesting about that. I'm still on World 12. So, oh no, I passed World 12. World 12 was the Bodhisattva consciousness, the Christ consciousness. World 24 is the light that pours from World 12 comes through level 24. So that means there are 24 rules. I don't know what they are, but there's 24 rules, and they govern the way that the light shines through. So in this stage, this is where we're talking about human beings being conscious. You are not actually conscious until you hit level 24. I didn't know that. And you have to pass a shock point to get there. And many of us know that. Some people call it the Shiro's journey, or something, that you had to pass a shock point to get there. So at this level, you're in the physical realm, but you take instructions, I love this, reliably from the higher realms. And you participate fully in the required cosmic exchange. I think that's very workable, because now we're seeing that the universe has a moral aspect to it, in that you matter and how you show up matters. And that creates for me playing the game in a different way. That creates for me, when I hit tension and suffering and obstacles, how I play the game matters, because I want to touch World 24. To me, I want to be in the kingdom of heaven. This is where you get to infuse your authentic presence into the world. So this is how, as a mystic, your energy touches the world. And then world 48, that's our world. And here's a distinction with our world, because world 48 is actually a higher version than we might see in our world, because world 96 is the shadow frequency of the gene keys. That's autopilot. So world 48 is our biosphere. It actually is represented by the, in scriptures about Eden, that luscious, beautiful earth. It actually, what Gurdjieff says is that it's seductive and entrancing, but it's ultimately a mirage. And it's seductive in that it's the best of human culture. It is the arts, it's technology, it's philosophy and ethics, it's good religion, it's intellectual striving. It's kind of the thing that, like, if you look at outer success people, that's, or a modern life, those are the things that people, they want to go to art galleries and they want to taste fine wines, and maybe we, not they, we want to enjoy the fruits of this beautiful place and our creation inside of it. Nothing wrong with that. It's just not conscious. In this world, it's self-reflective. Like, we're not in the animal world, like, and I think some animals are self-reflective, but humans are alleged to have that capacity of self-reflection. It's high functioning, it's rational, and it's the full flourishing of the biosphere, and yet it's not conscious, not yet. That's level 24. That's interesting. So we play the game that's conscious and it's not. And so then let's go a little deeper into distinguishing, because sometimes it's easier to see when it's not it, then we can see more of what it is it, or what is it. World 96 is autopilot. This is where the term autopilot came from Gurdjieff. And this is the world of personality. So some of you may not know that the Enneagram came from Gurdjieff, and this 9-pointed personality system, which really the purpose of it is to identify the not self. So human design is about identifying the not self as well. It's like, here's you, and then here's all your conditioning. And so world 96 is your conditioning. It's the world of your habits, recycled thoughts, your opinions, stereotypes. It's the not I, it's repetitive. So you notice you're in like the vicious cycles, repeating over and over the same patterns. It's the world of cliches. It's stale. And yet that is where, like, let's say, in my opinion, most of American or modern media is recycling world 96. So you can see that if I'm going back to my neighborhood analogy, that neighbor is playing some really loud, low vibrational music in recycling the thought forms of world 96. And it goes even down below that. It goes, actually, Gurdjieff mapped it all the way down to like below 10,000 worlds. So he was really into this. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to stop at world 192 is the hell realm. And I think it's worth understanding the spectrum. The hell realm is disordered. It's psychotic. It's evil. It's where we get the sense of demons. It's unbearable density. So you can tell that when the worlds have 192 rules to it, it's got a vibrational density to it. Whereas we speak about the higher realms as being lighter. It's got craving, wrath. These are kind of Buddhist terms. Envy, desire, obsession, fixation. Those are like how the Buddha describes like the poisons. And all poisons can be transmuted into gifts. And that's the same with the hell realm. It's like, it's just batshit crazy. And we can see this playing out on the world stage. It's, and I like the one way she put it from Eckhart Tolle, it's the collective pain body. And it's the pain body of our planet. So this is how consciousness devolves. And yet there is a conscious evolution that's also possible. So that there's like a first conscious shock that I mentioned that comes between world 48 and world 24. And that conscious shock is what takes you from being pre-conscious to conscious. And we've probably all had that happen in our lives by this stage of the game. Oftentimes they come around your first Saturn return, but at any point where you've had a severe wake-up call that has caused you to deal with your shadow instead of addictive patterns, and to wake up to that you're responsible, and then to make actions and choices. And they call that, and I'm going to end here, and then we'll get into our own group and we get to explore this a little bit further in the Evolving Sisters Sisterhood activation for members. They call this the eye of the needle. And I really love that metaphor, right? Remember the words of Christ. So it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And unfortunately, people took that literally, right? When it really meant that the outer hunger, gene key 35, and all the shadows of the gene keys, when you're going after that, you're missing the point. You will never hit world 24, because the world 24 is the kingdom of heaven. And so that eye of the needle is navigated through the terrain of the heart. And that's what we get to explore. I'm going to stop there. There's so much to say about it, and it's such a beautiful map so that you know that your behavior, the way you express, how you manage your suffering and alchemize it into spiritual light, contributes to this back and forth. And I'll say the word that Gurdjieff called it. I have to go look it up because it's a very weird term. Reciprocal feeding. There's a reciprocal feeding from the higher realms and our realm, back and forth. We are not just here to receive the amazingness of light and love. We are also here to embody it and then bring it back out. So let's do what we said we would do, what we do in our classes, and let's gather all the positive energy that we have generated and dedicate it to the merits. And however you feel called to do this practice, you can do this in your life. And it's just a simple phrase. Just generate the intention. May all beings benefit from the merits of our efforts. And then a little deep bow into our circle. Namaste.